including the members of the fourth estate who have found time to join us here today. For years, Kenya, a country that is endowed with rich biodiversity and heritage, is renowned for her steadfast efforts in wildlife conservation. As a country, we have endeavored to strike a balance between the protection of our natural heritage and the needs of communities who call landscapes where wildlife and human beings coexist home. Naturally, we have had numerous cases of human-wildlife conflict, what we call as HWC, in the course of balancing competing needs. Kenya's wildlife is a natural treasure and a key pillar of tourism. It contributes significantly to our economy. However, the truth is that the communities that coexist with this heritage have paid a high price we cannot possibly wish away. Kenya's journey of dealing with human-wildlife conflict is rooted in the sensibility that has informed our communities of the need to coexist with wildlife since time immemorial. From the legal point of view, Kenya formed her approach to human-wildlife conflict compensation upon the enactment of the Wildlife Conservation and Management Act of 1976. Before then, no such legislation existed. Evidently, over that period, we have had a fair share of trials and triumphs in the bid to compensate victims of human-wildlife conflict. Today, we announce a transformative step in confronting the challenge of human-wildlife conflict. The new era of compensation for affected communities is a model that is anchored on transparency and built on technology. It also embraces equity and prospects for enduring partnerships. And this new approach will prosper more if information around it is disseminated clearly and in a timely manner. That is precisely the reason why we have invited targeted media representatives to partner with us in this journey. Meanwhile, the government appreciates the patience and sacrifice of people and communities that have borne the brunt of human-wildlife conflict over the years. Going forward, I, on behalf of the government, reassure Kenyans of the commitment to address issues of human-wildlife conflict as a matter of priority. At the heart of this transformative and digitally enabled compensation scheme that we launched last year in 2024 to replace outdated manual system is a model that aims at enhancing transparency first and foremost. Already, we have piloted 6 counties. This new method aims to accelerate claim processing through real-time data method, and we know that we will have good data collection, verification, and direct payments, and where possible, we will pay via mobile services like M-Pesa for claims and the amount of 100,000 shillings. So far, 10 million shillings have been wired to beneficiaries swiftly and transparently, with 804 pending claims set to follow soon. This system is both about efficiency and the restoration of dignity to those impacted by human-wildlife conflict. It is also about rebuilding trust in a shared conservation vision. We at the ministry believe that true progress lies dealing with human-wildlife conflict in empowering communities, and under the Wildlife Conservation and Management Act of 2013, we have revived county-level community wildlife compensation committees to ensure that affected parties are handled in a devolved system that prioritizes justice and openness. This method is meant to ensure that individuals who understand the realities on the ground better get involved in verifying human-wildlife conflict-related claims, and that will be done locally. The model is designed to reduce delays, combat corruption and any fraud, and place decision-making power where it belongs, with the people and communities that coexist with wildlife. Kenya's commitment to fairness in human-wildlife compensation is reflected in the evolution of compensation amounts over the years. In 2023, the legislation provided for 5 million for human death. And so far, we have disbursed over 4.8 billion shillings since 2018. And a bulk of the compensations have been achieved under the current regime, which in the few years it has been in power has paid 2.8 billion compared to the 2 billion that has been paid since the enactment of the Act. We still have 20,000 claims pending and about 1.3 billion shillings backlog. We acknowledge the urgency of sustained action. Our revised compensation framework ensures that awards align with market rates, honoring both lives and livestock. Herein, our collective challenge is the need for an urgent and comprehensive awareness drive. Despite rising human-wildlife conflict incidences, peaking at 8,272 cases in 2023, funding for affected parties remains inadequate. We therefore invite the press to join us in a national campaign to spotlight stories on human-wildlife conflict and to create a case for the mobilization of additional resources towards human-wildlife compensation fund. Some of those funds should go to causes aimed at advocating for preventive solutions. We have no doubt whatsoever that well-informed and coordinated media voices can turn statistics into empathy and inspire policy measures that will in turn favor a fairer regimen of human-wildlife conflict in Kenya. From the elephants of Taita Taveta and Amboseli and Masai Mara to the pastoralists of Laikipia, human-wildlife conflict touches many Kenyans in numerous ways that rope in communities least affected by the human-wildlife conflict. Beyond policy, this new model of compensating human-wildlife conflict victims is a pledge to safeguard biodiversity, even as we take care of the human needs of our citizens. The reality, however, is that the government cannot do this alone. We call upon the media to consider entering into a structured partnership with the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife in telling our story, a narrative that will shift our biodiversity conservation from conflict to coexistence. We also take this opportunity to announce a human-wildlife conflict compensation drive in various spots in Kenya between now and the climax event that will be slated for the 26th of May in Meru County. As the Cabinet Secretary charged with overseeing the wildlife docket, I urge every one of you, our journalists and broadcasters assigned to news coverage in this sector, and indeed fisheries, and amplify the call for solidarity in making human-wildlife coexistence a rewarding venture. The future of wildlife and communities depends on our collective efforts to make coexistence feasible for all. And lastly, to just emphasize that the Kenya Kwanza administration is fully focused on ensuring that the human-wildlife conflict cases are handled efficiently, within time, and transparently. Thank you very much.
Ask questions. Start by introducing yourself and the media to represent. So who goes first?
I went from the two questions. What are some of the lessons that you have learned from the piloting of the new system? Number two is that communities residing in wildlife areas don't feel as if they are benefiting from hosting these wildlife.
I will respond to some of the questions, and our Principal Secretary, who is here, will add into the answers. The first one is the lessons learned from the new system is to say that technology is the way to go, because it makes it for the claims to be processed, and it also promotes transparency and removes any fraud that has been experienced before. Your second question is about communities who live or coexist with the animals. And we want to highlight some of the initiatives that the government has put in place. We do know that the conflict is caused by competition for resources like water, like food for both animals and wildlife. And we are working on strategies to ensure that we provide the water, both for animals and also for people, so that we are then able to demarcate and animals stay in their territories. And we have various projects to fence the places where the wildlife live, places like Rariak Forest and some other forests in Taita Taveta and across the country, so that then we are able to have the animals in their own spaces. We are also working on strategies to disseminate information so that we promote activities that will promote coexistence rather than conflict. But I want to give the Principal Secretary the chance to say something.
Thank you, Waziri, and good morning, members of the Fourth Estate. Let me move closer. Apologies, I was running late. I will go straight to the two questions. One, lessons learned from the pilot. Exactly what the CS has said, that technology is promoting efficiency and effectiveness. But we've learned that funding is important to ensure that the entire spectrum is covered. So even though we collect and collate the information on time, even we do not have sufficient funding from National Treasury, the wait time is still the same. So towards that end, we are working on the Conservation Trust Fund as espoused in the law. to make it stronger, to have all beneficiaries of wildlife contribute to the victims of human-wildlife conflict, that is members of the community who have to host this wildlife on behalf of the country. And we will be unveiling a few products and programs that we are working with private sector, just to ensure that the trust fund has adequate funding, so that once a claim goes through the digital system, funds for payment are also available. I think you've been told that we are dealing with a backlog going back as far as 2014 when the law was enacted. In terms of benefits for community, we are doing public participation that's ongoing right now for a new law, the Wildlife Conservation Management Bill 2025, which is supposed to overhaul the last act. And we have a whole sector on the wildlife economy. We want to incentivize communities to grow more wildlife that is one within the law. So right now we're doing ostrich, we're doing crocodile, we are doing a few more, aloe vera. We want to encourage communities and license them to grow more wildlife, to have more access to sustainable, what we call sustainable utilization of wildlife. The rest is what we are doing in terms of opening up conservancies, supporting them with infrastructure, but KWS is working very hard also to ensure that bomas are predator-proof. They are what we would call lion light. Problematic animal management units are well resourced so that we mitigate the HWC incidences. Thank you.
Because of time kindly, we won't take so many questions, so we'll take like 3. We answer all of them and then they answer one and so on. And so 1, then we have 2, the answer.
My name is Paul People. I work with community. I have 2 questions, one for you and for you. The first question is consumptive utilization of wildlife. As the cabinet approved the implementation of 2018 report on consumptive utilization of wildlife, and how will it benefit the community, and how are we going to look at so that we don't have a misuse, and because we have the number of wildlife at the moment is not that stable, so that it cannot be misused. The other question is on bioprospecting. To avoid biopiracy like what we have seen with ants and other vanity, how much do we make in terms of bioprospecting in this country? Have we utilized it properly? And if not, what are the measures or what are the issues so that the community can be able to exploit the issue of bioprospecting?
Good morning. I'm Christina Manyara with the National Broadcaster that is here to speak questions. One is to follow up on what Ben has asked. We're expecting a landmark ruling today on the smuggling, or the almost smuggling of ants and such. I want to hear from where you sit, how you're going to reinvest this, because whenever we're talking about protecting our wildlife, we all talk about the big animals at sea. Then now we are having this and we're expecting the courts to make a judgment, and how you expect this to invest on our biodiversity. Secondly, a clarification when you said monies on compensation are going to be sent via mobile money transfers. You said 100. Is that the minimum or the maximum monies that are going to be sent on this platform? From the 6 counties that you've been doing this particular kind of program, we want to know what cases. Is it elephant? Is it hyena attacks? Because we've had various areas like Kiambu and Kajiado dealing with hyena and hyena attacks. Third but not least, you're doing an overhaul over the system as far as the wildlife bill is concerned. There was concern from communities that are dealing with rampant cases of snake bites. Is it the moment now we want to reintroduce this because it was taken off the compensation aspect?
And you can understand. Some of the questions they had at the nest, but how much are you looking to compensate by the end of this year?
Thank you. I'll start very quickly. From ITAO, consumptive utilization, 1, there is a report done by a task force. We presented it to cabinet through the CS, and it was approved by cabinet for implementation. So we just said this report was done, and as you know, subsequent governments do not need to start things afresh. If there were some things that were done and we feel that they are of benefit, such as the consumptive utilization report. So it was presented to Cabinet, it was approved, and we are now going towards implementation. And first phase of implementation is to legalize what we think we can within phase 1 in the law. So that has been done. In terms of bioprospecting, you would say that bioprospecting is part of consumptive utilization only of genetic resources from especially plants. Kenya is a signatory to the Convention on Biological Diversity. We attend all the COP meetings, and we do have regulations at the international standard. Part of it, obviously, is access and benefit sharing of genetic resources. And what we are right now doing with our Wildlife Research Center and National Museums of Kenya is gene sequencing, just to know what do we have in our genetic resources and how do we make best use of it. There is a lot of gap. We are told there is so much genetic resources that Kenya is allowing other countries to use for cosmetics, for medicine, and so on and so forth. So right now we are looking at what is our genetic resource and how do we then go ahead and protect it within what we have in international law, but also what we will provide in the new law review. Smuggling of ants goes towards the same thing in terms of consumptive utilization of wildlife. We are regulated by CITES, Convention on International Trade for Endangered Species, on what we can trade and what we cannot trade. Ants is not one of those that we can trade, and KWS is here. And I think the Kenya Wildlife Service, together with a multi-sectoral security team, drawn from Kenya Ports, drawn from the Kenya Police, military, have been doing a very good job in terms of illegal wildlife trade at our border points, including ports and including transboundary, Kenya and Tanzania, Kenya and Ethiopia, and Kenya, so on and so forth. So this is a straight case of illegal wildlife trade. There has been some landmark rulings 2-3 weeks ago, including on elephant tusks. So this is just one of them. It's just that it's peculiar because many times we deal with trophies in terms of ivory and rhino horns, but we've been seeing this coming up, including snails being reported. It is good to look at it in the sense that we are protecting all wildlife, the big five, the small five, and everything in between. Mobile banking and M-Pesa. We have said that part of the delay that we are facing in compensation is that all money, even if one sheep is eaten, have to go through a bank account. That verification process, because sometimes most members of the community do not have bank accounts. And this is also the same as what the Ministry of Labor is doing for the Inua Jamii money. It is now going on the online platform. I think it is our appreciation for technology within our 5 pillars of Kenya Kwanza, which we promise a digital superhighway. And maybe I would confirm how much in terms of maximum we are paying. 1 to 99,000. So 1 to 99,000 is what we are paying by M-Pesa. I think, was it a law review and any other additions?
Thank you very much. There was also a question about the nature of the claims that we are handling. Of course, it depends on the territory. If you look at Taita Taveta, if you look at places like Kipia, many of the damage is caused by elephants. And I think if looking at the data of the claims we have, damage caused by elephants forms a bulk of the cases. But some of the other places, like you have said, you find lions and hyenas. And so it depends on the prevalent species in a particular area. We also want to, I think from a policy point of view, and the reason we are here is just to announce that we are taking human-wildlife conflict compensation to another level that will be guided by efficiency, by speed, technology, and transparency, and more aggressive resource mobilization. And the government, the current administration, the Kenya Kwanza government, is the first one to put such focus and effort in this very emotive subject. And we want to assure everyone that we are doing our very best. We'll put the best effort, of course, with partnership with the media, with communities, with private sector, with the conservationists, and everyone in the landscape. And of course, our entities like KWS, who are the major player in this space. We have our research institute that will guide us with the data that is available so that we can catch up on the pending claims. And then going forward, we work together to ensuring that this matter is handled efficiently. And that's why we want to be there. Of course, we know the question about snake bites that had not been included in the law. And that's the very reason why we are reviewing the law, which has been there since 2013, so that we can then input the lessons learned, what communities have experienced, and to ensure that the law we have is fit for purpose. So thank you very much for your time today, and we look forward to working with you.